Hey everyone, so I've got Ron Stefanski with me. He is a portfolio owner and in charge of 1 Hour Professor. He's probably one of the smartest guys in any room he walks into, and he's got a really cool entrepreneurial story of how he got started and how he's managing and running his business now. So I'm sure we're going to get into all of those details. Ron, super excited to have you today, buddy.
Yeah, Brady, thanks so much for having me. And I don't know about that smartest guy in the room comment, but hey, I'll take it.
How the tables have turned, huh? You
Yeah,
interviewed
no
me
kidding,
just a
right?
couple of weeks ago. So.
Yeah, no, that was fun. I'm glad to catch up with you. And I know you're in Brazil right now. And for those that don't know, I used to live there with my wife. She's from there originally. So good times, good times. Stay safe out there.
Maybe I'll come away with a wife too. So
Yeah, we can hope, right?
that's right. We'll just compare notes when I get back. So Ron, you're pretty well location independent. You can work, go anywhere in the world. Your business gives you like an incredible amount of freedom as far as like financial and location freedom. How did you get to where you are right now? What was your journey from just kind of bird's eye view, start to finish?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So basically, I think that my journey is similar to a lot, but a little bit different. So I actually was in sales for 7 years, hated it. I ended up getting into internet marketing, actually on a lie, to be honest with you. I really so it was during 2008, the housing crisis. Basically, I didn't really lose my job. I was in sales and they were like, you could quit and take this amount of money with you and then you'd be good. And I was like, okay, I'll just take that and then I'll go find another job. Pretty stupid in retrospect. Didn't really
Get
think
paid
about
to
how hard it
quit?
would be. Yeah, because it was like I don't remember I can't think of the word right now, but they give you the little package, like the severance type deal. Yeah, So they gave me that, and it wasn't even a big amount of money. It was like I don't know, because I was there for like a year, but it was like a couple 3,000-4,000 or something like that. And I was like, okay, well that's fine, because the company had got bought out. That's what happened. It was this weird situation that I don't think a lot of people deal with. So they got bought, they offered severance, and I was like, yep. So I was just like, I'll take that money and run, because why not? Because at the time I didn't really want to be in sales anyway, and I was like, whatever. So I had left, and after I had left, turns out it wasn't that easy to get a job in the middle of a recession, and had a lot of problems. I was unemployed for about, I think it was like 8 or 10 months total. And the situation really ended up with me at that time because I'd always wanted to create a website. I actually created a website, and it's now no longer available, but it was unemploymentunderground.com. That was my first website ever. I got in there, basically built it, thought it was so cool that I built something, and then I pretty much failed miserably at it, didn't go well. So then it was like, okay, whatever. But then in that process, I discovered the idea of getting traffic to the website, which for whatever reason, it like really stuck to me. So I thought that was cool. So I got into a job as an internet marketing coordinator at like some small company making like, I don't know, 35, 40,000 a year, not a ton of money. But it was like, I'm learning as I'm doing this. Right. So got that job, got in there, was learning, and then really got into it and really started to have an interest in it. Ended up going to an agency and then a startup and then a large education conglomerate, all these different things, in my career. And it was towards the later end of that I decided, hey, you know what? I felt like I had enough knowledge. I was like, I really want to start, creating my own brand and doing my own things. So I basically did that, kicked around a few things and didn't have a ton of success. And then one day, just basically there was a website idea that came to me. A family friend had a problem and they said, hey, can you help me with this? And I said, yeah, let me look. And I started research. I was like, I'll create a website on this. Cause at that point I was like creating websites like crazy, like just trying to make something stick. And that one stuck, and it actually ended up going viral on Facebook. And after it went viral on Facebook, then it was like, all right, everything's good now. And then I started to do a little bit of link building because I was reading that's important. And then from there, it's really just been, another website, another website, another website. So I've just been adding to the portfolio over the years. And now I have a total, I think it's 7 websites. I just sold 7 different websites in my portfolio. And my real focus this year and moving forward for quite a long time here is going to be the onehourprofessor.com, which is like my main brand. But that's really how I got started. I mean, it was a weird roundabout way. And for those that don't have a ton of knowledge, I will say I learned more about this stuff in podcasts than I learned. I got my MBA at that time. I had bachelor's, even the working, like I knew the foundation, but I learned more in podcasts than anything else.
So you have a portfolio. So you have kind of built this up over time, and I'm sure we're going to get to that. How would you recommend, where would you recommend someone who's getting started? Where should they go?
I mean, getting started is like that's the crux of everything. That's the hardest thing, because I feel like most people quit most of the time. They, especially like when I'm talking to people and I have people come to my website, I'm like, yeah, you can do this, but it's probably going to take, like I always tell them, like, it's going to take a whole year for you to actually really see any level of success. So I think that first off, anyone that's listening that's newer, that timeline is very important to understand, because if you expect, 3 months in that you're going to be killing it, you're probably not. That's just the unfortunate truth. But in terms of like where they go, I mean, for me, I spent I had the background in this stuff to where I already had some of that foundation, but I really focused on podcasts, and actually at the time it was Smart Passive Income too, Pat Flynn.
Yeah.
I had read a lot of his stuff, and that was really what got me into it. And then he mentioned his podcast, and then I got further into that. And then it was funny because like I had 2 hours of commuting at least a day for my job. And then I was like, I hate it. And then I just used it to listen to podcasts. And then, so for me, yeah, I would say in terms of where you're going to go, I mean, you kind of, and I don't know how you are, Brady, but you kind of have to get infatuated with this. Like, it's not just something that's like a part-time, like, if someone's trying this, you're like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in it. It's not for you. You really got to be committed to it. And, I mean, I know it can be difficult with tech and stuff, but you really have to be committed and be willing to do everything to make it work. So for me, it was like, that learning experience and those things, I was just absolutely enamored with everything related to it because I really wanted to succeed. And luckily so far I'm doing pretty well. So, yeah, I would say just, for me, it was podcasts and blog posts for the most part.
So yeah, I think your method of getting started is very interesting. Like, I think a bunch of people do kind of treat this as a, just side gig, which I understand it has to be at some point. But like, when you consider how much time am I wasting every day? And I know members of my family who are the world's worst at this, who will come home and complain about their life and complain about everyone around them. And then you say, okay, what are you doing to change the situation? Like, well, nothing really. And I think kind of the default gut reaction of people is, well, I only have so much time. Okay, but think about how much time you're spending in a commute, or think about how much time like you're on public transit, or you're wasting on worthless YouTube videos. Like, do you really need to watch all of Joe Rogan's 1,500 YouTube videos? Like, no, you don't. Like, I'm sure they're interesting, but this is time that you could be spent improving yourself. And when you think about this, like, if you can just invest an hour a day, that's quite a lot. Like, that's be 18 work weeks. If you can just invest 2 hours a day in improving yourself or working on your own business. So I 100% agree with you. And I think your story is just an incredible example of that, of like, how do you make every single minute count? Because you're going to have to in your business. Like, you can't just do this 30 minutes a day and then be driving a Lambo surrounded by hot girls in a year. Like, that just doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's funny they mentioned that, because I actually remember, so at one point I was actually blogging on my commute, as crazy as that sounds. I had figured out a way with Evernote. I was like speaking into, and it sounds insane. And I know people are like, how is that even possible? And it didn't last too long. It was like a 2 or 3 week thing. But the idea was just there, and you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've always, especially for people that are trying to do this part-time, I'm like, carve out an hour a day. If you can't carve out an hour a day, Monday through Friday, and Saturday, Sunday, you have more time. So use it effectively. Don't, at least do an hour a day, but always, if you can, do more than that. And I think that's so important, because that consistency, like I've talked about like this hour a day method thing. It's funny that you're saying it, because I've talked about it for years. I repeat it so many times because I understand what it was like. Yeah. Yeah. And I understand what it's like, right? Like, cause to give people an idea, when I was building my first site, I was working on a doctoral program. I was teaching at 3 different colleges. I had a full-time job, like an insane amount of work, right? I didn't have a family, but I would challenge anyone who has a family and say, hey, this was pretty taxing too. So, at that time I was so busy and so just, I just didn't have the time to do anything, but I found a way. And the reason why I found that way was because my job, like I said, was okay, but I had that commute and I couldn't stand the freaking commute. So my thing was, when I had a bad day at work, look out, because I'd come home and I would work until 2 a.m. for 6 or 7 hours right after work, just marathon it. Not because it was like, oh God, like I have to do this, but because I wanted to, because I wanted to get out. And I understood that the only way out was if I did this. And thankfully it worked. So.
So it sounds like you didn't like your life situation at all. And you were like, I think anyone would be crazy to say that you weren't working a lot of hours. How did you find the energy and find the motivation to come home and say, hey, I've still got to put it to the grindstone and get this done? How did you motivate yourself?
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like a different type of person or whatever, but if I say I'm going to do something, what's that?
You're a freak of nature.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but what I will say is this, is that if I say I'm going to do something, I will die before I don't do that something. Like, especially with business stuff, I do not mess around. Like this year I committed every single week. I was going to do 3 videos a week on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And there has been a lot of weeks that wasn't easy. You know, I went on vacation, my editor got sick. I had all these problems. I have not missed a video, and hell or high water, I will not miss a video. I hope, you know, like there's always a chance that something happens and I like can't do it. But when I really commit to something, I really, really, truly commit to something, because I understand now that I've been in this long enough, I understand it's more important, instead of focusing on revenue goals and traffic goals and all this stuff, productivity goals. That's the most important thing. And like, I'm not trying to be like that rah, like, oh yeah, just like, but it's true. Because if you say, okay, I'm going to do this, and you commit to it and you do it for that allotted period of time, for me, it's going to be all of 2020 for YouTube, right? If I commit to that, then good thing, the metrics follow, right? They're always going to follow you. Good things always happen. So for me, I think that's the biggest thing, is that when I commit to something, I'm just going to do it. To find the energy, like I said, I mean, I promise you there was plenty of days that I was like tired, but at the same time, and this is where I think the infatuation comes in, I really like doing this stuff. Like it was kind of a hobby. It still is kind of a hobby. And like, I'm now, especially right now, like working like 15 hours a week or a day rather, right now at this point, because I'm trying so hard to grow my main brand, the 1 Hour Professor one. So, you know, and that's tough and that gets exhausting, but it's like, you know, what's the alternative? I'm going to sit there and watch Netflix, especially during the week. You know, I'm going to sit there and watch Netflix, or, you know, what am I going to do? And like, my wife understands it. There's plenty of nights when we're sitting there on the couch. She's working on her thing. I'm working on her thing, or I'm working on my thing. And we're sitting next to each other with our computers, because she does, you know, kind of similar stuff here. So I just think for me, it was that. And then, like I said, if I ever had a bad day at work, that was like all the fuel I needed for a week, because I was like, there is no freaking way, because it's true. There's no way out of it. And like, I didn't completely hate my job, to be clear, but it was kind of like, this is okay. And I never wanted to sign up in my life for like, this is okay. You know, I really wanted to be able to do my own thing for such a long time. And I'm really, really happy that I've been able to do that.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, you're killing it on YouTube. So like, I try and do 2 videos a week, and I don't think I've published a video this month.
Yeah. The consistency is brutal. It really is. And I know Spencer too, Spencer Hawes, he was talking about doing it a ton, and like him and I even exchanged some emails and stuff. And he's just like, I mean, he hasn't been super consistent about it, because that's the hardest part with YouTube, is just the showing up. But, you know, I mean, that comes to, and we may touch on this later, but having outsourcing, having a team with you, you know, making sure that you do one thing and they do the rest, you know, all that stuff. And I have those pieces in place. It took time to get them there, but that's why I'm able to do it. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about what projects you are working on during your massive 15-hour work days. So yeah. I know you've got 1 Hour Professor. And then what else?
Yeah, so I've got like I said, the 1 Hour Professor website and the YouTube channel by far take up the majority of my time at this point. Because, so I have and people think, oh my God, he has a website portfolio of 7 different websites or whatever. I'm actively working on, at any given time, 2, maybe 3 of those I'm working on 2 of those websites. My team is really focused on 2 of those websites. The other ones are getting some updates once a week, maybe updated blog posts or new blog posts. Nothing crazy, right? Not a lot of work going towards those. And then 1 Hour Professor is taking up the share of it. So me personally, my focus is mostly on my own brand. And then my team, I have them trained, and, you know, they've been with me for a little while. I have them trained and in place to where, like for instance, Brady, if I want to write a blog article for one of my websites, I may just say, hey, let's write a blog article on this. I assign it to the writer writes it, she puts it to the editor edits it, she pushes it to the VA takes it, puts it up, formats it. I literally just say, let's do this. And then by the end of it, I can just go look at a completed blog post, images, everything completely formatted. And to be clear, anybody that's new, that didn't happen overnight. That takes time. And it's taken me years to get to this point. And you have to have the financial, means to be able to support it and all that stuff. But luckily my business has been able to do so. So yeah, I myself though spend most of my time doing the 1 Hour Professor thing because I'm trying to do a lot of guest posting, podcasts, YouTube videos, all these things. So that's where all my time is pretty much spent as of late, for sure.
Yeah. So you recommend building your team around your portfolio and how that does kind of separate your time from your income in a certain way. And I think this is one thing that I see a lot of new entrepreneurs doing is they say, I want to take this one business idea that I haven't really had any success with yet and just invest as much as I can in my time and energy. What advice would you give to someone who's starting out, who feels like they found a really viable business model that has some cash to spare?
I mean, for the most part, it really depends on their life situation. Like if this is someone who has, if you're not married, you don't have a bunch of responsibilities and you're working a 9 to 5, you can go home and grind that thing out 4 or 5 hours a day easily. I mean, in my opinion, right? Like you're going to have to work hard to get there. That's just, there's no two ways about it.
Embrace the suck, baby.
No. Yeah, exactly. So that's a realistic situation for those people. Then we have the other side, of people who, hey, I got 2, 3 kids, I'm working and then I get home, I'm exhausted. I get this, that, and the other going on. It's really, really hard for me to spend all my time here after hours. I get it. But that doesn't mean that you still can't build something. What it means is that you have to, you don't have time. So you have to buy other people's time. That's really that's what outsourcing is. So, I mean, I would say anybody that's at that stage in the beginning, it's probably best for you to write a few blog posts, edit a few blog posts, do it all yourself, post a few blog posts to understand how long it takes, figure out the voice of what you want your blog to be, figure out all that information. And once you figure that out, then start in the beginning, for the first thing, in my opinion, get a writer, right? And have them, you can even write an article template or an article brief, as I call it, which is kind of like, hey, here's the main topic, here's the subtopics. And you give them some pretty decent direction, but they actually do the bulk of the writing, right? Because writing just takes a long time, no matter what. Like I'm a pretty good writer, but it takes forever. So when you do that, you buy back a ton of time and then you just become the editor and then you post it. And then eventually you can get to the point to where you can hire an editor and take that part, and do what I do, take the editor part out of it and then put it here and then eventually get a virtual assistant to help you. But in the beginning, I think it's really important that anybody that's doing this, probably for the first, I'd say probably the first 2 months, maybe 3 months, they're 100% doing it themselves. And the reason I say that is even if you have cash, I can tell you right now, if you have cash, you have no idea what you're doing, you're not going to succeed. So if you're doing that, take some of that cash. You'd be better off right now taking some of that cash and maybe talking to someone that you want to be a mentor and possibly buying consulting hours. And I know people are like, oh, the consulting's so expensive, because I was super cheap when I started. I was like, I was looking at spending money, not investing into my business. That's how I was looking at it. And now I look at it differently. But in the beginning, I didn't want to spend all my money there. So I was super cheap about it. And it probably took me longer because of that. So, investing in yourself, in your knowledge, understanding, getting a course or a mentor of some sort, or, paying for consulting, whatever it may be. Start there if you're really, as a beginner, really learn. And then once you feel like you have a pretty good handle on it, and not even just when you feel like it, but when you're learning things, just start doing things as you're learning them, because you're never going to learn any better than if you're actually doing it yourself. That's for sure.
Yeah, I recommend the exact same thing as what you just said, but you said it much better than I ever have. And when you're getting started, I think it's very important to keep your investment as low as possible if the business model is unproven to you. And I've been reading a book called How Google Works, and this is how they implement new products inside the kind of Google atmosphere. Is they try it out, they keep their investment as low as possible. When it's proven, when they know it works, then they can increase their investment, but not until then. And I think we should approach our businesses the same way. But I think the things we should invest in, number one, should always be yourself. Because if you lose everything tomorrow, what's left? Just your knowledge and your connections. And that's it, My brother makes fun of me because I have so many books. I literally have over 500 books that I've accumulated just in the past 4 years. And he's like, you are a freaking nerd. But I realized, like, if I lose every dollar I have, every business that I'm a part of, what do I have? Just my knowledge. So I think your advice to find a mentor, find some kind of course. I used to say like no courses, don't waste your money, but now like there's some really good courses out there. I know you've got one that's just killer. For anyone who's not on your email list, they for sure should be, because you just release some awesome and true real information. But yeah, find someone who's doing what you want, and then just follow them. Like, do what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. And I just had a whole discussion on this too with YouTube. There was a video that people were talking about, like, why do gurus teach? Like, why do you guys teach if you could just make so much more money doing what you do, right? And like, I think people need to understand that a lot of people like myself, we actually enjoy it. Like some people look at it as this like greedy thing. Like, oh, you're doing it because I remember someone said that's easy money. And then I laughed in their face because I was like, you think it's easier to market on internet marketing stuff than it is other things? Like this is one of the most crowded, saturated markets and one of the most difficult to stand out in. It's some of the best marketers in the world are in this freaking area.
Screw you, buddy.
So, yeah, it's like, I assure you that that's not what it is. But the point there is that, like for me, when I was starting, Spencer was one of the people that I followed closely. He didn't know me personally, but like, that's because I was too cheap to pay for it, you know? So like, I really followed him closely. He may have not even known it. You know, Pat Flynn, another guy, I really followed him closely. I looked at everything he was doing. I was reverse engineering, trying to figure it out. Like amazing. So just doing that and really taking that time to learn and really be humble enough to know that you don't know this stuff is so valuable. And then, just do it as you're going. And then you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You had just talked about, like in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. That's like the saying that really reflects here. So like when you start out, that's why it's important, I think, to bootstrap, keep the costs low within reason, right? It's okay to invest in certain things like knowledge and that. But in general, you don't know what you don't know. So there's that possibility that you're going to be one of those people who picks the wrong niche in the beginning. You're 6 months in and then you realize like, oh my God, this is the wrong one. Well, talk to someone who knows their stuff, because they may say, yeah, you know what, that's not the greatest thing, but here's what you can do. Let's do a little bit of a pivot. And they might be able to help you with that kind of stuff. Because that's, a lot of people quit, and that's unfortunate. It kills me when I hear people quit. Cause it's like, you're right there, really, truly, you're right there. You just don't realize it. So you might need that extra oomph for that person with the specialty to come in and say, well, here, like I had someone I consulted with, and he was doing one thing. And I said, I'm looking at what you're doing, and I don't think that's really going to work because of this reason. And I just told him to make a subtle shift. And now last I heard, he was making like $3 or $4 grand a month on his website. And I was like, that's freaking awesome. I mean, he did all the work. I'll take a little credit, but I know that I steered him in the right direction. So.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I saw your video on my gurus give out information for free. 100% accurate, right? Like, I mean, there can be some financial gain to it. I saw your last income report. Like, I know you're not ready to retire off 1 hour professor.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet. Not getting there. But like, there's so much joy that comes from when someone who you've watched grow, and I've just gotten to the point in my career when I'm starting to see this happen. People who I have talked to and coached have started to see true success online, like getting to the thousands of dollars per month mark. It's like, I can't tell you how good that feels to me. Because my purpose is I want to inspire and empower entrepreneurs. Like, that's why I'm here. And when we can see that there's no monetary value on watching your student become a master.
Yeah, I would honestly say if you gave me a choice, and I really truly mean this, if you give me the choice between like, I don't know, like $500 or $1,000 or watching, like, especially at this point, because I'm okay financially, if you're going to give me $500 or $1,000 or show me a student that I consulted that I really care about, that's now making $5,000 or $10,000 and quits their job and that sort of thing, I would easily risk that money every single time just to see that, because that is a lot more gratifying. Like, the money's nice, don't get me wrong, right? But the other thing, watching someone grow to do that is so much more gratifying, because you know that you truly impacted a life, helped a family, helped a small business owner, helped an entrepreneur. That is so much more gratifying to me. And I just talked about this on a different podcast I had the other day. Like, I am a big builder of communities. I don't look at my websites as websites. I look at them as communities. They're communities. They're people. Like, everyone who's listening, everyone that goes to your website, it's a person. It's not a number, right? So just building community, helping people. If you're doing that, you're going to see a lot of positive results. And that's just how it is. And that to me anyway, I know it sounds cheesy, but that's the most gratifying thing. You know, like I'm a teacher. I am a college professor outside of this. I enjoy teaching. That's what I enjoy. So.
What do you teach in college?
I teach, it depends on which school. I'm at 3 different schools still. But the thing is, I'm an adjunct professor. So like, and it's all online. I've designed it this way, but they've offered me in-person courses. I'm like, no, that's okay. Cause I don't want to deal with the commute. Like I get paid the same. So I teach mostly advertising, marketing courses, no surprise there. And then once in a while, I'll teach like business or professional development type courses as well. But it's mostly marketing and business stuff.
Dude, I bet you're a great teacher because I think
I try to be.
Yeah. I mean, your portfolio has given you so much real world experience, which I think was part of my problem with college. I had a few, and they were all within myself, or most of them. But one was that like, this teacher's never like done real economics work. Like he just teaches this stuff. Like
exactly. Cool. That's like everything that I can't tell you in like most of my blog posts, like YouTube videos, it's always like, okay, today I try to do this as much as I can. Today we're going to cover this. And basically here's why you should trust me, because I'm not like, you know, I've gotten that compliment a lot of times from people saying, oh, you're so good at making difficult concepts sound easy. And I mean, it just comes out of my mouth. So I can't vouch for it, but I just heard it over and over, which is good. You know, I'm doing something right. But the biggest thing is I always focus on, here's the thing, and this is why you need to listen to me, right? And that's like on my website, I have my income reports. Since 2014, when I started out and I was losing money every month, I've always kept those, because who am I to talk about how you make a living online if I'm not doing it, right? Like that's like, and there are online gurus who are like, yeah, you can do this, and they're not doing it. So like, how do they know, you know? And like, I really try to be one of those people who practices what I preach. And frankly, I enjoy it. I mean, my ideal situation in the future is probably to own 3 to 5 websites that are all pretty big, you know, like, I don't know, just that. And then the 1 Hour Professor website, right? Like that would be it, like my personal brand and then my portfolio, and that's it. And I could just be happy with that. So.
Yeah. So let's chat about your portfolio right now. What's in your portfolio right now?
Like the actual, what do you mean? Like the actual websites, like the niches, or because I don't disclose it. Well, okay. I don't usually disclose the domains, only because I've had situations. I actually used to do that. If you dig back far enough, people can find it. But the thing is that I used to do that. And I remember I did it on a pretty big podcast at one point, and I got, within, I'd say 3 weeks, there was about 12 or 15 new competitors, and some of those took away my market share. And I was like, you know what? Nope, not doing it anymore. So I don't share them publicly, but I can give some idea of the niches and such. I have a few that are in employment. I have a few that are in pets. Some that I guess you could call reference. It's hard to explain that, and I can't explain it because I can't get deeper into it.
You're good.
But yeah, that's, you know, the websites that I have, those are kind of the areas that I've focused on. And then of course I have the 1 Hour Professor one, that's like, you know, business marketing, online business, all that stuff.
Yeah. And how are those websites earning? Not the numbers, but
well, I can tell you numbers, because I mean, like I said, I've done my income reports. So I get what you're saying now. You're saying, how are they making money? Okay. So the employment ones, for the most part, those are probably my biggest earners within my portfolio. And then we go down to like the pet ones. Those are making some money. The reference ones is actually kind of some newer ones that I have there in the, we'll call it quote unquote reference area. And those are making, they're doing pretty good so far. They're still pretty young. In terms of like the ways in which I make money on those websites, which is what I think you were originally getting to, is I am different in that a lot of people talk about like, hey, affiliate marketing, Amazon, and all this other stuff. I primarily focus on display advertising. And that just means like, you know, for those people that are new, you know, you may see the ads on the page and you're like, oh, I'm just going to skip over those and never click on them. People click on those. They do. And they click on thousands and thousands a day for me because I have a whole portfolio of those. So I do that. That's like primary where my income comes from. I'd say probably like, I don't know, like 85% of my income comes from there. And then, you know, I'm 5 to 10% into like affiliate stuff. I'm trying to grow the affiliate a little bit more, not so much Amazon, but affiliate with, you know, other products and other services, just other businesses out there. I'm trying to do a little bit more of that this year. I'm going to be doing that with 1 Hour Professor, because the truth is there's like well, you know how it is. There's so many tools within the online business world. Like I have a lot of experience with them and I just don't talk about it. So I'm starting to talk about those more, right? And then getting some affiliate stuff there. And then like, you know, I have my YouTube, which makes some decent money every month. I think it's, I don't know, it's like $500, $600 a month. So it's like, you know, I really like, I'm a big fan of diversifying. So I try to diversify. And I will say a good point to that. We had actually talked about this before. We can talk about this now a little bit more openly. So a good lesson for anybody listening about diversifying. So as I just said, most of my money is in display ads. Well, recently I had a situation, I was using Google AdSense and they essentially were marking a lot of my clicks as quote unquote invalid, which it's still kind of a gray area in terms of how they define that. But basically they were saying that after I got clicks that the money that I was making wasn't valid, apparently, which is weird because these are from the same websites that have had the same ad layout and things weren't really changing on my end. I'm not really sure about why, or we won't have to talk about the politics with that. But what I will say is in that whole thing, diversification saved my butt, because if I wasn't diversified away from just display ads, it would really have hurt me. And if I only had one website with display ads, it would have really, really hurt me. But I had diversified, right? So like some display ads were bad, some were good. So I ended up to fix it. I left and just went to ad network Ezoic. I'm sure people have heard of that before. So I went into Ezoic, and now it's not Ron versus Google anymore. It's Ezoic versus Google. And that's been working out like really well so far. So I'm super happy with that. But yeah, diversification is key. And for me, still I make a lot in display ads, but I'm definitely trying, let's get a little bit away from display ads and let's focus a little bit more on affiliate and things like that.
It sounds like, does most of your traffic come from Google as well?
Yeah, an obscene amount of traffic. I'd say probably 95%. And like, I know that's also, hey, Ron, you should diversify, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of social. I mean, I do some of it. I'm just not a huge fan of it. And I feel like buying traffic only works if you have a high enough ticket price on another item to pay for it. So I do rely on SEO and Google probably more than I should, but I don't know that there's a great way around that other than building your own audience, which is what I'm doing now, collecting email addresses, trying to do that as well. So,
gotcha. So your plans to kind of diversify away from some of that risk that's just inherent to Google, inherent to 80% of your income from one source. That's in building your own brand.
Yeah, I mean that's really like the 1 Hour Professor website. That's why I focused on it so much here this year, is because last year it was I don't remember what it was. It was like October or November of 2019. There was an algorithm update, and it hit my main website for like a 10 or 15% loss. And I was like, at that time, I remember I was talking to my wife. I was like, we are one algorithm change away from being broke. Like that's not okay. And I had other websites going, and I had a little bit here and there. So that was when I really we really got to diversify. So that's when I started to focus more on my own brand. And now my plan is like, let's focus on this. Let's build up an email list. Let's get a real community. Let's build that because, we've got like a Facebook group, all this different stuff, because I want to make it so that even if Google completely gets me, in one area, I can at least survive until I come up with my next, hopefully brilliant idea and go from there. And really that saved my butt, like I said, with this display ad thing, because if I didn't diversify away from just the one website with display ads, I would be in some serious trouble right now. But I've been able to weather the storm, and that's exactly why.
That's great. So we touched on this a little bit. What are your future plans for your business?
Future plans for my business. I mean, at this point, I'm slowing down on building new websites, only because there's only a certain amount of bandwidth up here that can handle it, and it's just gotten to a point to where I've realized that every new website I take on, it's pretty easy to plug it in, but there comes like a saturation point to where it's like, okay, we've got to slow this down. So I think I was up to like 8, 9 websites before. Like I said, I just sold one. I'm condensing it down and getting smaller on purpose, because I'm trying to get, let's have 3 or 4 or 3 to 5 really good websites that are doing really well, that have managers in place that are managing content, and these are really buttoned up. I'd rather have that than 20, 30 websites that, are kind of like loosey-goosey out there. So I'm trying to do that mainly. And then, like I said, the 1 Hour Professor website, I'm trying to build that up. I just kind of, build my own community and stuff. It's funny because like I said, I had that issue with diversification in 2019. They had the update, and then my wife kind of turned to me and she's like, that you're kind of an expert in this. And like, my head was down so much that I wasn't really thinking about the fact that, hey, I'm making this amount of money and a lot of people aren't able to get here. I really wasn't thinking about it. And I was just reporting and just kept going and going. And then I realized like, oh, I guess I should probably stop and like maybe do, because I always wanted to do that in the first place. Like one of my first websites, aside from the one I talked about, was 1 Hour Professor. And like I created it and I was like, I'm going to sell all these courses because I did digital marketing, like at corporate level for 7 years. I was like, oh, I'm going to sell. It didn't work. So then I was like, oh, whatever. And I just kept doing the income reports. But then I realized like, oh, well, maybe I can kind of go back to this. This is my passion anyway. Maybe I can go back to it now and try to build it. So that's my future plans. Like I said, is build that. Hopefully sell off some of my my websites that I have that are, pretty good, but just not really something I want to focus on that much anymore. And then just focus on, like I said, 3 to 5 websites that are big and really get teams in place to manage it. And then, go to Rio de Janeiro and hang out and do podcast interviews like you.
That's right. We can hang out together.
Yeah, there you go.
So you've got a bunch of projects going on at the same time. It sounds like you don't have any problems working on multiple things at the same time.
No, I would say for the most part, I mean, I think that like I've always had this, because we all have the shiny object syndrome. I think any entrepreneur, any good entrepreneur is going to have that. You're going to have 1.5 million ideas. And there's definitely, especially in the beginning, it's dumb to focus on so many, yada, yada, yada. But what I've come to understand about myself, and I don't even know if this is for everyone, but what I've come to understand about myself is that I have a really hard time just working on one thing and putting all my energy into it, because I don't know if I get bored or I don't know what it is, but I've tried to do that and it just doesn't work for me. So I like to have 2 projects really at the most going on at any time. And I think that there's the other thing, aside from just keeping my interest, I think that there's a real advantage to that, because when I talk about things, about websites, I feel like people listen more, because I'm not talking about 1 website or 2 websites here. I'm talking about a whole portfolio. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of learnings, that have happened within that whole portfolio. So when I'm talking about something or saying it, it's not like I'm just like, yeah, here's how you do it because I did it on my 1 website. No, I'm saying here's how you do it because I've done this all these different times and I've made these many mistakes and I know this and I know that and I've been in this niche and this one. So I think that really has helped me learn quicker than a lot of people, because I've seen all these different scenarios that a lot of people don't, they're not faced with. So.
Yeah, that's funny. You talk about like shiny object syndrome and always having ideas. I think I don't know if I'm an exception or just a different norm. I'm not that way. So I can optimize something. And that's really how I've had business success in my life up at this point, is I've been able to optimize things and make existing projects better. I'm an operator at heart, not an idea guy. Like to come up with creative solutions that don't already exist, 100% out of my skill set. Like if there's a solution already there, I can think of something else and I can almost for sure optimize what's already there. And that's what I've done for my professional life. But as far as like coming up with something fresh out of the blue, I don't have that. So I don't know how normal that is. I would consider myself an entrepreneur. I have equity in 2 companies. But I don't know. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. So like for me, here's the thing. Like I hear someone talk about like, for example, one of my friends has tinnitus, which is a thing in their ear where it's this weird ringing, and maybe someone who's listening to this has that. So he told me that. And my original thought wasn't like, oh my gosh, my original thought was, I wonder if they have a website about that. I wonder if they have a Facebook community about that. That's how I think. I mean, that's just like, I just see the opportunity immediately. So it's not like I'm coming up with these brilliant ideas, because like, especially for beginners, they're like, oh, this idea has been done. I can't possibly do this. Like I've never come up with an original idea, to be clear. I think that what I've done is I've found an idea or a niche that I thought was good, and then researched it, saw an opportunity, and then I just did it better than the few amount of people that were in that area. Except for, the online business area, which I'm focused on now, a lot of good people there. But generally speaking, I go for those, like, let's go for those smaller community things. And that works really, really well. I just recognize the opportunity, and I only have to do it better than the 5 or 10 other websites out there. Like none of it's new. I just have to do it better than them. And that's totally reasonable when there's not a crazy amount of people.
There's so much money to be made in taking someone else's business idea and executing it better than they do. I think ideas alone have very little value, but I think execution makes all the difference in the world. So if there are 5 billion tinnitus sites in the world, but none of them are truly solving someone's need, then that's space for an entrepreneur to come in. And that's where I can thrive, is like, I can take a Me Too business and to the sky, but like figuring out a new solution, no, doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like, for example, my wife, she's into sewing, you know, and I can talk about this because I don't think people are going to create a website on this. She's into sewing, and we're seeing that you know, she's doing a YouTube channel and sewing and all this, and we're getting to the point to where we're looking and we're like, all these people are doing it, but one of the things that we found that's really interesting, and you and I can share in this, is that I think a lot of people do this stuff, but they still do it as a side gig. So even if you're just able to do this full time, I think that gives you a competitive advantage over a lot of your competitors right there with a website. I know that sounds crazy, but like, we look at these other people, it's like, well, they upload to YouTube once a month, you know, and they're doing pretty well, but they don't upload often, or they don't blog post often. That's just, that alone is a huge advantage. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about kind of getting bored with less than 2 projects. I'm 100% the opposite. I've got 2 projects I'm working on right now, Brand Builders, and then another one called Site Buddy. I'm floundering like a fish, man. I'm struggling. I for sure have an addictive personality. Like, I just do. I've never been addicted to anything, but when I like get my mind set on something, it's all I can think about, all I can do. So I've got to be careful. Like, I don't hardly drink. Be frankly, I'm 23 and never done drugs, because I'm horrified of what would happen to me if like I got hooked on anything, you know?
Yeah.
So just like, even having just 2 businesses, you've got like 8 or 9, but just having 2 for me is like, oh gosh, I wake up and I'm like, oh, someone like shoot one of my businesses today.
I wish I just had 2 right now. I mean, that's the thing, is I went to where I scaled too heavy, and now I'm trying to come back from that. Right. I don't even think, if I got to just 2, I think I'd be bored, or I'd be like panicking, you know, I'm not diversified enough. I'm not diverse, because that's just how I think. I can't help it, because I've been burned a few times. You know, I've had things happen. So I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this. So it's all part of the journey, man. Like, it's just like, as time goes on, and I could tell you, you know, when I built my first website, I sure as heck didn't even think about building 7 or what, you know, like, that wasn't even on my mind. It was just like, let's build 1. And then after I figured it out, I was like, oh, I could probably do this in this area too. And I could probably do it here, you know, and then it just adds up, and then you put people in place to help manage it as it goes. So
what inspires you to start new businesses? Is it just, you just get excited to do that?
Yeah, I mean, like, when it comes to like starting a website, and I have like 2 or 3 different ideas now of websites that I really want to build, of course. Right. So really for me, like, in terms of what gets me excited, I think the first thing that really gets me going is just like seeing the opportunity. Like, I just truly enjoy building something from scratch, knowing that I was behind it and I built it from 0 to where it is. That's what I really enjoy. The money's nice, and like, that's great, but that's really not even my focus. I just like building things and building communities. That's really what I enjoy, because I like to think like, it came out of my head and here it is, you know? So for me, like, seeing opportunity is a huge one. And then, I mean, you should see how ridiculous I get. Like, it'll be like 24, 48 hours. I will completely fixate. You want to talk about being addicted and obsessed. When I come up with a new idea, the amount of research, the things that I do to see if it's really viable are I think, next level. I really do think so, because I do completely just get 100% obsessed, infatuated with it, research everything, lose sleep over it. Like, I'll close my eyes and I barely sleep, like a wink, because I'm so excited that night. And I still get that feeling after all these years, which is really, you know, what kind of job does that? You know, like, I'm happy that I'm doing what I'm doing. So for me, that's what really gets me excited, is really just the opportunity. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm very competitive. I'm just a very competitive person. So I look at it, and deep down, I'm like, hey, I hope that myself and the other person will do well here. And like, that's how I feel at my core. But on the other hand, I'm like, I want to destroy. Like, I want to take away everybody's market share. It's like ruthless, you know. And I have a conscience, so I'm not like a Jeff Bezos, just like, let's crush you. Like, I would have a hard time doing that. And then again, I say that, and I'm not in charge of Amazon, right? So like, I have that mentality. I feel like I'm a good person, and I try to be, but I see that competitiveness, I see the opportunity, and I just want to go and absolutely destroy anybody else that's trying to do it. So, and I've done reasonably well with that. So,
What would you recommend to a beginner who's still getting into like online business? Follow you?
I mean, yeah, that'd be cool.
In the portfolio route. That's what
Yeah. I mean,
of course, follow Ron, please. He's
yeah.
brilliant.
You can do both. No, like, yes, starting out, I mean, the first thing I'll say is I don't believe in the notion or the idea that you should quit a full-time job and just go for it 100%, especially if you're like brand new. I very strongly actually disagree with that, because I know some people are like, oh, just jump, but you'll never do it. Like, or just jump and then you'll do it and then you'll sink because you don't know enough, you know? So I personally think that most people should do this as a side gig. I think that they should keep their full-time job, or if they don't have a full-time job, part-time job, just some way to make some money to pay your bills. And I say this because when you're not paying your bills, you do things for the business strictly out of money to get money. And you make some really desperate and stupid decisions doing that. That's just the reality of the situation, because you're focused on money. You're not focused on growing a community, growing a business, and understanding the large, the larger grand scheme of things. So I'd say that would be the first thing, to understand that. And then like the actual path to go is, first off, just start, right? Like if you don't start, nothing's ever going to happen. So listen to a podcast or however you like to learn, right? Read blog posts, listen to to a podcast, doesn't matter. However you like to learn, absorb for like maybe a month, maybe 2 at the most, and then go. Like you have to take that step, because there's some people that'll just learn for like a year or 2 years. Like they'll keep learning, and it's like, okay, that's great. Let's get going. And I remember when I was on my commute, listening to podcasts, I knew it was time when I'd listen to Pat Flynn, I'd listen to these other guys. And I remember specifically, Pat Flynn has the Ask Pat podcast. And I remember it's like this thing where they'd ask the question, and then I'd say, before he answered, I would say, I think he'll probably say da-da-da-da. And that's what he said. And like that happened over and over. And I was like, why am I still listening to this? Like right now, let's take action. Let's stop listening. And I still do listen to all these different type of podcasts here and there. But there was a time when I was obsessive compulsive about it constantly. So I think it's just a matter of like sit there and learn, become confident enough to take the action to start, and then just start, and if you can get, a loved one that supports you in it, great. If you can't, you don't have to tell anybody. That's fine. Like do it on yourself, do it inside. You can keep it your secret. Myself, Brady will know about it, but no one else. That's fine. So you whatever you want to do. But yeah, just take the time to learn. But I think the biggest thing is after a month or two, you got to take that action, because if you don't do it, it won't. It's not just going to magically happen. So
if you can quote internet marketers of what they're going to say before they say it, you're probably ready.
Yeah, pretty much. That's where it got to. It was actually laughable. And it really was like, why am I listening to this anymore? And it wasn't like I wasn't learning anything else, because there was always a tidbit here and there. And like I said, I still listen to stuff. I still learn. But at the time, that's all I was doing. And I was like, all right, we need to take a step back and get going. And I did, and it worked out.
Yeah. I think once you're at the place where you're like, okay, am I really truly learning, or am I just like mentally masturbating? Like,
yeah.
If you ask yourself that question and you say, okay, maybe I'm not learning that much anymore.
Yeah.
You're probably as ready as you're going to get without actually doing it. It sounds like your wife's very supportive of you.
Yeah, absolutely. She is my rock. She's awesome. She, especially as of late, she puts up with and I mean it when I say I work 15 hours a day. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. And she puts up with that, and that is not easy. She's so funny thing about her. So she came from Brazil originally, and she at one point had a YouTube channel of, I think it was like 2.3 million followers. So she was a YouTuber. She was a big time YouTuber. Like if you walk around in Rio de Janeiro and you talk to people, someone may know her, right? It was a few years back, right?
Crazy.
But she was pretty big. So she has that entrepreneurial spirit, right? And she knew this when she signed up. And I explained, like, she knows how I am, to where I do get, I'm just a hard worker. And not only just a hard worker, but like, I don't always see this as work. And it's hard for me sometimes to disengage, because I have like, if we're watching trashy TV, I can't sit there and watch trashy TV. I'll watch trashy TV with a laptop in my lap, because I just can't do it to where I can sit there and waste all that time. So yeah, she's super supportive. I think that's very important. It's amazing to have her in my corner. And yeah, there's plenty of bad days when I go to her, and she's made me happy. So
you're saying you can't watch trashy TV. Are you saying that 90 Day Fiance is not the greatest thing on earth?
Okay, hold on. Because the funny thing about that is we watch 90 Day Fiance a lot, actually.
It's
I'm not even
addictive.
kidding.
It's a
Yeah, no, it
guilty
is. It is.
pleasure.
Yeah, I know. No, we were literally watched it last night, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. So, yeah, that's the trashy TV that I'm referring to. And it's like, hey, this is like kind of funny, but let's focus on real life a little bit. So that's actually one of the things that, yeah, for sure.
What advice would you give to someone who is in this position and maybe they're in a relationship, or it's, say, a college student whose parents are very unsupportive, but anyways, someone's wanting to get an online business, and those who surround them, friends, family, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, isn't really supportive of that journey? What advice would you give to that person?
I think it's a little tough if you're married, because there's financial repercussions to that as well, especially if you're low on cash, and that can be a really hard situation to deal with. But I think if you're married, it's a situation to where you turn to that person and you say, look, this is my dream. I'm doing this not just for me. This is for us. This is for me to try to do this. Hopefully they'll become supportive. If they don't at that point, maybe you don't have the right person. I just got to say that, because hopefully the right person would support you, especially if they understood how important it was for you. But if you're dealing with like parents of that, and they're like, because I have college students that'll contact me sometimes like, oh, I'm trying to do, I mean, what do you want to do? Right? Like, who cares? Who cares about what everyone else thinks? Like, I mean, my thing, so I have, like I talked about, I was halfway through a doctor before. I have an MBA, right? I did that. My parents didn't push me to that. I did that out of an insurance clause for myself. That's what I basically call it, is I thought, hey, if this doesn't work out, at least I'll have an MBA to fall back on, right? Like, that was my idea. And I didn't even really get into online business and focus 100% until I was about 30 years old. I mean, I was kind of dabbling in it, but at 30 was really when I made like that big push. So I had time. So like, but when you have someone that isn't supportive, it doesn't matter. Just keep going, because a lot of the times I feel like those people that give up because of that, that's like the saddest thing in the world. Like, you let someone crush your dreams and dictate your life, right? Like, that's awful. That's like one of the worst things you could do to yourself. So instead of doing that, just go through with it. And, you may fail quite a few times, but I promise you, if you keep going, you will have some level of success. And then hopefully you can turn to that person, and depending on what you want to do, you can throw it in their face, or you could just say, hey, look at this. This is really cool, and then they'll be like, oh, wow, okay. So, I think you should just keep going 100%. No doubt in my mind whatsoever, because it's your life, and you only get one. So
That's what I've done, is I just threw it all in my haters' faces.
Yeah. I mean, you can, right? Like if it works out, then it's like, oh yeah, you remember how you said I shouldn't do that? Yeah, here I am, and I'm in, Paraguay this week, and where are you? Oh, you're still back home. That's cool. Cool.
Yeah, and it's so, obviously worked out really well for you. So what is your end goal? At what point do you say, I'm done?
Oh, that's a tough one. I like it. I like it so much. I'm 30. What am I right now? 36 going on 37 actually in about a week.
You just look 29.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going, September 8th is my birthday, so I'm going to be 37. I, at this point, have absolutely no interest in quitting or stopping, because I genuinely really, really like this stuff. I genuinely do like it. But I think end goal for sure would be to, like I said, have a portfolio of 3 to 5 websites that are pretty much on autopilot, that I have teams in place for, that are growing and making the content better. And then having my personal brand. And I'm sure at some point I'm going to be old and crotchety, and I'm just going to say, you know what, screw it. And I'll just sell my whole portfolio of websites. Maybe I'll still have my personal brand, or maybe I'll just say, I've made enough, and I'm just going to be good. But I can't fathom a world in which I'm doing nothing. Like people talk about I'm going to retire at 60, 65, whatever, and I'm going to do nothing and just sit there. I would absolutely right away probably start a foundation. If I had the money, I'd start a foundation, or I'd do something. I can't just sit idle. I can't do it. It's really, really difficult for me to do that. So I have to have something that's mentally stimulating. So if it's not this, who knows what the next step would be. But yeah, end goal, 3 to 5 websites, and then my personal brand for sure.
Yeah, I think the whole retire at 60, 65, however, I think that's a broken message we send to society. I think several reasons for that. The primary one for me is, if you look at the places in the world where people live the longest, they're called blue zones. Have you heard of those?
I have not, no.
Okay, read a book. I think his name's Dan Buchner. called the blue zones, about these places around the world where people frequently live past 100. One thing that every single one of those, I think they're called like centenarians, has in common is a reason to wake up in the morning. And I think that can be anything, but I don't think it can be nothing. So I think you can say, well, my purpose is, whatever. Like one example they use was, there's this Japanese woman who views it as her purpose in life to wake up every day and to pray for her village and then to provide counsel to the young women there. Awesome.
Yeah.
But no one's purpose was, I'm just going to sit down, take it easy, watch Netflix, and then just wait for the end to come.
Yeah, I don't think human beings, I mean, most, unless, I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of those people, just gonna straight up say it. So like generally, I'm sure there's people out there like that, which is frightening. But just generally speaking, I don't think human beings are really built that way. I think that you have to aspire to, like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you might just, you might want to completely quote unquote retire and go volunteer at a dog shelter and take care of your kids, but that still gives you purpose, right? Like that's what you want to do. You still have purpose of some sort. So I don't know. There's probably a few people out there that are just, they are, that sitting on the couch and this, that, and the other, but hopefully they'll find this podcast for another one. And, but I feel like most people, they got to have something, just human nature. I think you kind of have to.
Yeah, I do too. And I think those quitters are not us. Ron, let's get into some rapid fire questions and I'll let you go enjoy your night. So Sweet. What is one tool that you cannot live without?
One tool that I cannot live without, I would have to say probably Google Analytics. In terms of making my decisions, everything's data-based. So everything that I do is based off of data, keyword research, analytics, because I don't trust my gut, and that's usually what I do. So,
feelings do not reflect reality.
Yep.
What is one thing you're reading or consuming?
Constantly consuming podcasts. I've consumed your well, be consuming that. I could tell you a list of podcasts. I don't know that we need to do every one of them, but like I'd say some of the better ones that I do. I'm actually looking at it right now for those that aren't seeing it. Probably, I would say some of my favorites with podcasts, definitely Authority Hacker. I'm a big fan of them. I like Invest Like a Boss is another good one. And then there's one that's really cool that is My First Million. Have you ever heard of that one or no?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that's by The Hustle. Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm actually not a huge, I didn't buy into The Hustle. It just wasn't my thing. But I will say that podcast is freaking awesome. If you want a business idea, start listening to that podcast. The amount of ideas that come out of there are insane. They're like visionaries. They don't execute on everything, but the ideas that they have, so many of them are viable. So I really like that one. I think it's just intellectually stimulating. It's enjoyable.
Sweet. And what's one strategy this year that's really made a difference for you?
So far, I would say, I got to say two. I'm sorry, I have to say two. Number one is my YouTube, because I've seen some great success with that. It's connected with people. It's doing things that my blog wasn't doing. And then the number two thing is I've been focusing a lot more on this lately, and that is link building and guest posting and getting my name out there, not necessarily for the links. I mean, that's all helpful and everything, but also just to connect with others, build communities, start to learn from people, that sort of thing. I've gotten a lot out of that, and I've only been doing it for the last month and a half, but it's paid off in spades so far. So,
what's one way you've cut expenses this year?
I hate to have to cut expenses. I really hated to have to do it. I genuinely did. It was frustrating to me, but I've looked at my software expenses, anything that I wasn't using or wasn't using enough of, I downgraded it. And then unfortunately, and it kills me to even say it, some of my team members that I've had for a while, I haven't fired anyone, but I have had to cut down on some of their hours, which I don't like at all. But I feel like I said, Google kind of forced my hand with that one. And then we have also got the pandemic, right? So it was like the double whammy. So I've had to cut back a little bit. But I think that was necessary. And I have a theory that every time that something like this happens, a recession, the best companies come out of it, because everybody cuts and trims the fat and cuts back, and we get super, super lean, super strong, and then you come out full steam ahead. So I'm hoping the same thing happens with me.
Yeah, I've seen a list of successful companies that were started during a recession, and I can't remember any of them off the top of my head, but I'm really brand names like, oh gosh, I hesitate to say any. One that comes to my
I
mind.
think Airbnb and I
That's
think
what I was
Uber.
thinking.
I think Airbnb and Uber, I think, if I
Yeah,
remember right, are two of them. If I remember right, I think so.
I was thinking Airbnb, and Uber
Yeah.
makes sense as well. So I mean, I think you're right. Like that
Yeah.
trimming back, hard times breed champions.
Yeah, yeah, it really just makes people focus on the product and the best thing ever that they can do, and trim all the fat, and you're operating, without very much overhead because you can't afford it, right? So
Yeah, and then what's a great business that doesn't exist today?
a great business that doesn't exist today kind of goes into my fear, and I don't know what's going to happen with this, but a great business that doesn't exist today, I would have to say, is going to have a lot to do with artificial intelligence, and it's going to have to do with creating content around artificial intelligence. There's a lot of different things I've heard with the My First Million podcast. They were talking about this, and there's certain machines that are writing blog posts that are pretty much indistinguishable from human beings. They're super expensive to run, and it's not something that can be done now. But I do think that in the future, there's going to be some hard times for content creators. But I do think that there will be ways around that. So I would say the great business right now is owning, well, the great business that doesn't exist yet is going to be owning some type of AI machine algorithm that can do that writing and can take all those data points and create a very, very good article that it's hard for Google to distinguish between human being and robot, because you'd be able to put out so many of them as long as you have the computing power. So
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's so powerful about what we do as online business owners is we take robot systems and we make them work for us and serve people in new and exciting ways. I
yeah,
think that's kind of the inherent power of online business.
for sure. For sure. I agree
Awesome,
with that.
Rod. Well, that's it. Any parting advice that you would give to our listeners and watchers?
Yeah, I'll speak. The people that have been around, you probably know the grind and you've probably been pushing through it. But the people that are new, just keep going. Don't stop. I don't care if everybody says that you suck. Just keep going, because you're going to fail. You're going to make so many mistakes. You're going to have so many things that you do wrong. I did it too, Brady. I'm sure you've done it. Everybody does it. So just keep going forward. And I promise you that as you go, you'll learn, you'll fail, you'll learn, you'll fail. But eventually you're going to learn enough to where, holy cow, you're actually going to make it. And then I also got to say, if you want to learn more about me, onehourprofessor.com, the website, or just go to the YouTube channel as well, either place.
Yeah, I was about to ask. So, would you be good, say, putting an email or putting a link to your email course in the video description? That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm actually doing. I will be launching something soon. So I've got a mini course that people can sign up to, and that is like, hey, if you're right at the beginning trying to create something, right, you're not sure what to do, it's got a few different videos in there and everything, so that'll help you out. But I'm going to try to do a little bit like a few more free courses, and one of them that I'm going to do is like an email course on like everything I've learned on how to start a blog, like 10 steps, 10 days, 10 emails. So I'm actually kind of close to launching that. I haven't told many people about it yet. But by the time that this comes out, I think we're on the tail end of it. I think I'll be able to have it up there. So yeah, we can leave a link just to the course page and they can check it out there.
Awesome. Yeah. So in the description, you can scroll down and me and Ron will organize something to give you for free. So,
For sure.
Ron,
For sure.
thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it.
All right. See you.